Hi, so I'm Rachel. For those of you who don't know, I'm from New Zealand. Yes, that is where the hobbits are from. No, not part of Australia. So a few weeks ago, I had the really enjoyable experience of doing remote text peer testing at the last Australia-New Zealand weekend testing. I really enjoyed this, and one of the surprising things for me was that peer testing didn't seem to be as widely appreciated as it is at my work. It is one of our more powerful tools for a range of testing activities, and so I thought I would share my thoughts on this in the hopes of broadening its appeal. Before I get into why I think there's a lot of power in peer testing, I should bring a few things into context. My team are all very largely self-taught, as we have come from scientific backgrounds. We were hired for our domain knowledge, but our management team also looked for people that they thought would learn and grow to love testing. Because of this, we can be pretty general in some of our terms and adapt everything to suiting our needs. So we've taken the concept of traditional peer testing, that's two people testing at the same time on the same machine, and changed it into, or added group test sessions, where we each work on separate machines, but we're in constant discussion, moving between machines and sharing what we find from each other. Now, we often do this with up to 4 people, and it may not work for a large testing organisation, but we find it works really well with 3 to 5 testers. So we do still use traditional peer testing. In fact, this is one of our best training tools. Because we've come in with our domain knowledge, it is really important to bring our new testers up to speed, not only on the complexities of our software, but also our testing methods. It's also really good for individual testers to formulate in their own mind how they test, and by vocalising, you learn more about the craft as a whole and our product. We also use this tool, peer testing, traditional peer testing, to update our coordinator. As I'm sure is the case in most workplaces, our coordinator doesn't have as much time as she would like to spend on all our projects. So we find a short peer test session with her. We can show her through new features, problem areas, and give her a general overall feeling of how the current product is going. And often this is conveyed better in these short sessions than sending a report or an email. So back to the team testing sessions. We use these at multiple points throughout, and the important thing is to keep the inherent nature of traditional peer testing by being in constant discussion. And that's really the key factor. That way you are incorporating what the other person says, and you can verify things, and it becomes quite a mobile thing. Early on in a release, these are great for getting coverage of new features. In a short amount of time, we can have feedback to the developers on what the problem areas are going to be, and also for ourselves on what we would like to look in further. As we progress through the release cycle, however, we can refine our focus, and we can start to look deeper into individual components of each feature. As we refine our focus, we also move on to something second use for it, where we are looking to reproduce hard to pin down issues. These can be things like windowing problems or timing issues, and we find that a short session with a group of testers, each doing slightly different steps on their computers, again in constant discussion, can mean we get this narrowed down, find really good edges, and are able to find all the issues related to this in a short time. Later in the release, we can use it again to widen our focus. So we've each been working on individual features, and as we come back together again, we bring fresh eyes to features we haven't been looking at recently, and able to incorporate everything over the whole. Overall, either of these peer testing sessions are great team bonding sessions for us. I learn lots about how my teammates work, I learn where their strengths are, and I gain knowledge from how they test. So it is really enormously powerful for us, and it encourages us to work collaboratively, and we play to each other's strengths. And that is my talk.
So, difficulty with peer testing at my job. We've tried that similar kind of thing a couple of times, and what happens when people go silent? Like, you just kind of stop talking, you're investigating something.
So this happens quite often, and I like to talk a lot, so I don't give people a chance to be silent. So if I'm not bringing up what I see, so I might say, oh, I've noticed that this button is behaving like this. What do you see on your machine? So encouraging them to give me a specific answer, or ask them what they're looking at and sort of prompt for answers back. Or you go and look over their shoulder and say, oh, that's really interesting. You're looking at this feature. What have you thought about this? And so the more you encourage feedback and more you encourage participation, the more participation you'll get back.
Come on, Paul. I wasn't the closest. I've recently reboot my mouth. Try again. I've recently been doing this as well. I love parallel discovery. Our most recent instance of this, we actually had the lead developer for the product in the room with us, and so that was really cool because he was able to squash bugs as we were finding them. He did eventually get overwhelmed, but he's just a dev, so.
It's cool. It's something we can look at in the future as well.